Thank you very much for inviting me, Mac. It's always a pleasure to be here, and thank you everyone for being here too. It's much appreciated. Um, this started off with really a box of buttons. You know how sometimes boxes of material end up on your desk, and you wonder what you're going to do with them. And this started really as we were looking at doing a project out at Te Waimate, which is a mission station. It was built in the 1830s, and it was part of sort of the idea of the missionaries were going to establish a mission farm in order to teach tangata whenua how to farm, which unbeknownst to them, they've been farming for quite a long time. But anyway, it was the introduction of European methods of farming. And so this box of buttons turned up, and if anyone's had a box of buttons turned up, you sort of look at them and you start sorting them out, and that's what happened. So this is the story of what happened when we started sorting things out. So this is the location of where we're going, which is the Te Waimate Mission, and for those that haven't been there, I would encourage you to take a look along with all the other places we have around. And here we have it here. This is the only surviving building of the mission. There were actually 3 buildings just like this, each with a mission family in them and a series of outbuildings as well. But this is the sole survivor. So this is what happened. This box of buttons arrived on our desk in September of 2024. And we thought we're planning to have a project to clean objects for display. And these buttons have been found in the basement of the mission house. And it was part of a cleanup, probably from the 1960s. I actually put 1970s, but I've now found it's the 1960s when I did a bit of research. There was no contextual information. Normally as archaeologists, we look about where it's found, its location, where it sits, but we just found a note found in the basement. So did a bit of digging around in archival material and found out that the building was actually undergoing a huge amount of changes, which I was not really that sure about. This is what it was like in the 1960s. You can see that it's quite a simple structure. And then in the mid-60s, the Ministry of Works sort of rebuilt it. And so there are some original features still left in the building, which is the inside of the building when you go inside in this bottom piece. That's original. You can see it's here. That's all original. The top bit has been very altered. And when they were doing that, of course, they're having a big tidy up. And part of the tidy up was gathering material which that was deemed as could be interesting and placing it in a box. Now, the thing that interests me about these buttons is I wonder if they were garments, because you find the odd button and sometimes you find collections of buttons all from the same piece of clothing. So I think what's happened is there's been garments that have been placed down into the basement at various times over the last 180 years or so, and during that 180 years they've sort of fallen apart, and all that's been left are these buttons. So what do they look like when we got hold of them? Well, there you can see them there, quite badly corroded, some of them. These are metal buttons, probably were originally cloth covered, and they were in quite a state. So what we decided to do is we got a volunteer of ours, Jack Kemp. Jack Kemp is really a military historian, and he started cleaning these buttons, and he based them on the shape, the size, and the materiality of those buttons. So he started sorting them to look about, because we had no contextual information, they're all just in a box. Normally what we'd do is we'd sort them into where they were found, at what layer, but of course we didn't have that information. And the most important thing is photographing them both before and after they were cleaned. So we've got a record of what they look like and what they're like after they've been cleaned, because what we want to do is not only see what they are once they've been revealing themselves, we want to see what they were like before they revealed themselves. And depending on their composition, they're either just gently dry brushed with a little brush, just gently brushed, or washed in a dilute solution of conservation detergent and then rinsed. And as with all things in both museums and archaeological sites, they were bagged and tagged so that we knew what the information was and where they were. So I guess in the process, what did we find? So what we found is they were from multiple ages and types of buttons, and they had a large range of materiality. Some were modern plastic buttons, some were shell buttons, some were metal buttons, some were cloth-covered buttons. And they were also associated with a range of male and female garments. I think that's the interesting thing, is it wasn't just all male buttons or all female buttons, it was a mix. And it was also a mix of outer and underwear. And but what surprised us was the military buttons, as this was a mission site. So Jack, being a military historian, and my knowledge of underwear and outerwear was pretty minimal, I thought that perhaps I would concentrate on the military side, because I do have a bit of inkling about that. But obviously, as we go further down, there's more to learn from all these other buttons. So we have here a picture of the Te Waimate Mission in 1845, and there's a few features I'm just going to point out here. That's St. John's Church there, which is still in existence, and here you can see the other buildings along here. So as you can see, there's a number of buildings in this mission site. Now there's only the one house, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings shown there. The other thing is you can also see here where you've got the development of a European style type of farming. Here we can see Māori in the landscape and the Europeans there, but you can see the fencing, cattle, crops, so you can see a landscape being transformed. And of course, part of this transformation is colonialism, and colonialism is normally associated with power. And what happened in 1845 is we had the chopping down, or the pushing down, really, it's not really the chopping down, of the flagpole at Kororareka, Russell. And within a couple of months, this is spread into the Taonga. And the first big battle was at Pukitutu on the 8th of May, 1845. And there's some interesting features about this battle, and I'm just going to point them out to you. Here we can see the pa. This is Heki's pa here. This is Lake Amapri here. And we have these soldiers all lined up here. So they're the soldiers, but we also have naval people here. And these naval people are gunners, and they're firing a rocket. So they were actually firing rockets into the power. They're called a Congrave rocket, these rockets. By all accounts, they were not particularly effective. They spun all over the place. But the other thing I want to point out is the buttons. You can see the buttons on their shirts here. And this is why. So amongst the buttons found at the Waimate Mission cellar was some Royal Naval uniform buttons. And I mean, you're thinking, that's a long way from the sea. What are Royal Naval uniform buttons doing there? But the button would have belonged to a Royal Navy sailor that had either been stationed at Te Waimate Mission or was perhaps passing through. And you'll see this picture here. This is what was found in the Waimate Mission after Jack had cleaned it up. And this is actually a very fancy one which has been shown up. This is from the Royal Naval Museum at Greenwich. So what we have here is kind of an event, and then we have these small buttons that are probably associated with this event. So again, this is the battle scene. And if we just do a close-up on these naval buttons, if we drill in, here you can see them all down here. And so these are the buttons that would have been shown, the Royal Naval buttons that we have just here, that we found here. A couple of months later, there was a battle at Hawaii in 1845, July 1845. And this is where this pa had been fortified for against cannon. And so what we have here are these, you can see these little loops here. There was a ditch behind there, and so you could actually fire through those and you're fully protected. So it was actually a fantastic piece of engineering. Now you see here, there's a flag here, and you can't see underneath there, there's another flag. What happened is that was the British flag that was stolen and was flown upside down. And Colonel Despard literally lost his rag. He went nuts. After his flag was flown upside down, he decided to get all the men to charge this pa. And one of the officers said, look, this is madness. We'll be charging into a range of fire. And he said, well, I don't care, that's what you're going to do. So he took off his uniform and charged in his underwear because he didn't want to damage his uniform. That's a remarkable story. Anyway, what happened is they went into that field of fire, and within a couple of minutes there was 100 men dead and dying on that field. And so they limped themselves back to the Te Waimate Mission House, where they set themselves up. So they carried their men to a field hospital at the Te Waimate Mission House, and the survivors of the regiment made themselves at home. And as the winter wore on, the soldiers burnt every available scrap of timber, including fencing, shingles, and even the wooden facings for the fireplaces. And also, archaeologically, we found huge amounts of alcohol bottles in the far field, so they're obviously doing a lot of drinking as well. But they also built breastworks, and you can still see those today when we just out behind the mission station. They're still visible, the breastworks. Breastworks are basically a ditch that's dug to the height of your breast, so that you can fire your musket and be protected. So this is the, and of course, small things tell big stories. We found the buttons. This is the button that Jack found when he was cleaning up, and you can see here it's very badly corroded. But you can just make out a 5, and you can just make out Gibraltar there. And here it is. This is a 58th Regiment button, which was the regiment that was stationed there at the mission station. And here we can see here the names of the different campaigns that they took in Malta and Gibraltar, and there's also one in Italy there, so they're stamped there. So they're made from brass and they've degraded, but it's a tangible reminder of the time when the British military, including the soldiers of the 58th, were staying at the Te Waimate Mission and wreaking havoc on the mission. The newer button, as you can see there is what it originally would have looked like. And these here are members of the 58th Battalion. These are non-commissioned officers. This photo was taken in 1858, so it's just a few years after that battle. And looking at the age of those men, they probably took part in that battle. And here you can see their regimental buttons on all the way down here, and there they are there, and they would have that design there. So what we have here are these small things telling big stories. They're telling stories about the militarisation of the North, and the militarisation of a mission site. But wait, there's more, as they say. We found this. These are the Royal Scots Guards Piper uniform. We found these buttons. And we identified them because they have the thistle here, Scottish thistle. And you know the saying, never bring a knife to a gunfight. Well, I brought a knife to a gunfight. I said to Jack popped in this morning and I said, look, Jack, I found those buttons. And he said, no, you're wrong. I said, why is that, Jack? He said, well, because I found this piper with the buttons. And he said, look, he said, you're wrong on 2 counts. He said, first thing, this person here, he's in civilian dress. That's not a World War I, even though it was the right time period. And I said, but look, you can see the buttons here. And he said, look closely. I said, I am looking closely. I've zoomed into it. He said, when you look at those buttons, he said, they've got a slight curve there. He said, they're totally wrong. So this picture here, which if you look at these, if you look at those buttons there, you can see they're straight. They don't have the curve. So therefore, this photo I'm about to show you is actually totally wrong, and I apologise, but I just thought I'd just do that because I only found out this morning and I didn't have time to change it. I'll research it. But the point is this is why you have a military person looking at these things, because they're able to tell you. And I know very little, and I think that's the point about when you're looking at things, when you know very little, it's easy to make assumptions about and fill in the gaps.
It looks grand in a kilt anyway.
It looks grand in a kilt, yeah. So now we come into the 20th century. So really, and this is, so we've got war at Te Waimate in the 20th century. We have the outbreak of World War I, and we've got these 3 diamond-shaped buttons, and well, Jack has actually worked out that the Royal Scots Guards Piper's uniform, and we don't know why they're there. We've got no information about who was in the Royal Scots Guards that lived in the house, but it could have been a coat that someone had, or it could have been placed there, or we don't know. And it remains a mystery, so there's more work to be done on that. But so there's the mystery of the Royal Scots Guards Piper's uniform. The next button we came across is this one, which is the New Zealand Army Service button. And they were used both in World War I and World War II. This is the button that Jack found and cleaned up. And here you can see New Zealand Forces and the 4 stars of the Southern Cross. And here we have one that's for sale. And actually I like our one better, I think it looks better. This one's for sale. They're quite relatively common. But the point is, why is it there? What's it doing at Te Waimate? It could have been perhaps a member of the family that was serving, but we've got another theory, and let's just see how we get on with that one. Okay, so the New Zealand Army Service button depicting the Southern Cross was standard feature in the uniform worn by New Zealand soldiers in both World War I and World War II. We're unclear which it dates to. It's also maybe connected with the family, but we're saying that it probably recalls a part of the strategic part that Waimate North played in Northland's defence plans during World War II. So what, some of you may have heard this before about the camps, all the military camps that were scattered around Northland. And as part of the research that we're doing, we found this was the 18th Anti-Tank Regiment was stationed at Waimate North. And so here we have it here. They were actually just you've got the Waimate North Mission Station, just behind it really is the showgrounds. That's where they were stationed, in the showgrounds there. And here we have the military map, which shows exactly where they were, map reference and everything, so we've got a good idea. They also had Stuart tanks from 1942 onwards. They had them stationed there. So I haven't found a tank yet. That would be good. But I think what it does show is that small things do tell big stories. This little box of buttons tells us they're small and insignificant, but the collection of buttons found at Te Waimate tells a big story. They're a reminder that the often common, everyday items take on new importance when they're used as a lens through which larger historical events are viewed. So I think the whole point of this very short talk, and I apologise for the shortness of my talk, Glenn, but I think the point of it is really that these small things, when you start examining them and looking at the values that are associated with them and their context and where they sit in the environment, they can tell us a really important story. So that is the message really I want to do. Now this is the collection, a further collection of buttons which were cleaned and put there, and what stories do they hold? I don't know, but you can see there's some interesting things here. These buttons at the top are shell buttons, very early I think, and although some of them have really bad holes, that one I think might be a modern one. You can see it's got that little knurled edge. This one here is definitely done by hand. These look like children's buttons. These really caught my eye. Little sailing ships on the buttons, maybe from a coat. These may be mourning buttons. They're the black buttons you can see here. That's a plastic button. Needless to say, I haven't done any research on those buttons. I just concentrated on the military buttons. Point is that the more you look, the more you find out. And I'd just like to conclude and thank you all very much for coming. Kia ora.